Hello there, world of tankers, and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we are taking a look at the WZ-71. This is a Czechoslovakian light tank that will be coming into the game. And this vehicle looks quite impressive. Normally, light tanks aren't known for their damage-dealing capabilities. You know, if you look at Tier 10 lights, you got what? The Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. Doesn't do that much damage. It's honestly one of the worst performing tanks in Tier 10. You take a look at the 200 LT, low alpha. The AMX 13105 definitely does a decent amount, 390 damage per shot, so we can deal just shy of 1200 with its full clip. But even then, that pales in comparison to this light tank. The WZ-71 is going to be a machine gun, essentially. It's going to be a Tier 5 Leopard up at Tier 10. And to showcase that, we're going to take a look at its statistics today. This is one of the most exciting looking vehicles that will be coming into the game in a very long time, and I'm really interested to see how it actually ends up playing. The things that I should point out at the bottom, characteristics are not final, and this is in the super test, so there's a very high chance that this vehicle will be balanced in some sort of way. But usually the stats you see here are at least going to somewhat make it into the final version of the game. So let's take a look at the shell damage, the clip, and the overall gun. So it does 12 damage a shot, which doesn't sound like anything crazy, until you realize it has a 75 shell clip. Yeah, so if you do 12 multiplied by 75, this tank can deal 900 damage in a clip. That's pretty good. It gets even more crazy when you see that this thing has high explosive that does 25 damage a shot. So essentially, we do, again, 25 multiplied by 75. 1875. What the absolute heck am I looking at there? Yeah. That's where I was talking about with this vehicle's ridiculous damage capabilities. This thing has very good high explosive pen, 50 millimeters. I mean, for a gun that only does 12 damage and 25, you'd think that its penetration is pretty mediocre on the HE, but no. Essentially, if you get the opportunity to swap to an HE clip on a light, you are going to absolutely annihilate it. You can literally full kill a light and another half of a light over with 1875 damage. But as we did say, it's only about 900 damage for the base clip. How long does it take to deal all that damage? Well, each shell is 0.05 seconds. So if we do 0.05 multiplied by 75, it is going to take 3.75 seconds in total to deal 900 damage. So that's a pretty quick amount of time, but to be fair, the Skoda T56 down in Tier 8 can deal the same amount of damage, so yeah, and in the same clipping time. So in terms of damage output, I'm not going to say this vehicle is the most devastating thing ever, but definitely with the high explosive, it is quite crazy. Now here's something that's really interesting. This is the first tank in World of Tanks that actually loses damage when loading gold. We can see that the damage goes from 12 to 9 when you want to swap to APCR, being the premium rounds. That's quite interesting. So your clip goes from 900 potential damage to 675. I mean, that's a big loss in damage. I personally hope that Wargaming brings more vehicles like this into the game and rebalances Tier 10 and 9 and 8 and all the tiers so that premium shells have less damage than the standard. I know people say, yeah, heavies will become stronger. Then take away 10% of heavy tanks hit points or something like that. Wargaming definitely has the resources to balance out the game properly. I just hate that people get away with spamming gold because it doesn't make sense. So this is the first tank that we're actually seeing a reduction in damage for loading gold. That's quite interesting. Now you'll notice it has 800 shell velocity on the standard, which is pretty mediocre, 1000 on the APCR, and 720 on the high explosive. This vehicle features a 15-second clip reload. That means you can get 4 clips out in a minute. So if we just do how many clips you can get out in a minute, we do 15 seconds, also adding in the 3.75 second interclip. So that's going to be 18.75. So we do 60 divided by 18.75, giving us a rate of fire of around 3.2 mags a minute. So multiply the 3.2 by the 900 clip damage that you'll be dealing, and it's got 2,880 damage per minute. But that's effective. If you're loading gold, you're obviously going to be losing about 25% of that effective DPM. So if you actually do multiplied by 0.75, this is how much DPM you have loading gold. Yeah, that's quite a bit less. It goes from 2,900 to 2,160. Thankfully, it does have decent standard pen. I mean, it's not the best, but it's enough to cut through the majority of lightly armored and medium vehicles at that. From the sides, you'll penetrate the majority of heavies. It's just from the front, you're definitely going to want to swap to gold, which is where you're going to lose a lot of DPM. To be fair, it's not like awful levels. You're not dropping down to Manticore levels of DPM, but it is definitely going to lose a lot. Now, something I wanted to take a look at is ammo capacity. What is the max amount of damage you can deal in a game? Well, you deal 75 shots a clip, and that does 900 damage. So if we do 1,200 divided, well, actually, we can just do 1,200 multiplied by the 12 damage per shot. So the max damage this vehicle could deal is 14,400. But obviously, there's no way you're penning every shell in a clip. So let's say that you're only penning half, then you're looking at maximum of around 7,000 damage. Actually, that's pretty good. Most light takes usually don't have a huge damage capacity. You know, if you look at something like the Manticore, you're barely even able to load high explosive. But in this tank, it looks like you'll have plenty of room for HE, plenty of room for standard. That's actually quite nice. Now, dispersion is honestly pretty dang bad. 0.4 base is pretty awful. Running food, running everything equipped on this vehicle, you're probably going to be looking at like 0.35, 0.34. That's pretty dang bad. I would expect the on-movement values of this tank to be fairly good, though, as it is such a small caliber, but you never know. It really will be interesting to see in that regard. Aiming time is 2 seconds. That's also not fantastic. It's pretty mediocre overall, but once you obviously have this vehicle fully equipped, it'll be all right. 12 degrees of gun depression is going to allow this tank to be flexible, but it's a light, so it's not that big of a deal. You're obviously not going to be using this vehicle hull down against your opponents. For the most part, you're going to be clipping and dipping, and that's what I would expect for a tank like this. When it comes to top speed, 65 kilometers per hour, and reverse is 25, so it's a fairly quick vehicle. You're not going to have to run turbo or anything like that on the vehicle, especially with a power to weight of almost 40. That is quite impressive. Its turret turns very fast. The hull traverse is pretty good. 1,400 hit points is fairly average for a light tank. Almost no armor. 30 mils on the turret, 20 mils on the side of the turret, 20 mils on the hull. Yeah, you're not going to be getting bounces really at all. I mean, even 90 millimeters are going to butter right through your vehicle. So this is not going to be a tank you're looking to get bounces with. This is a tank that you're looking to nuke somebody and get into cover with. It is really going to be an interesting playstyle. View range is not the best, not the worst. It's pretty average. You know, it's sitting right at the category. Overall, this tank honestly looks like it's going to be a blast. I don't know if it's going to be really good. The generic statistics going for it, you know, everything we have here, it looks like it's not going to be as good as like an AMX 13105. You can drive a 13105 and deal 1,200 damage in, you know, 6 or so seconds, and that's it. You just dump it and you're done. You dealt 1,200 damage. This tank is going to deal 900 damage. Unless you load gold, then it's more like 600-ish, whatever I said, 670, 640. So it's not going to deal as much damage, and while it does have a lot more gun depression, and it does have some nice things going for it, I think it's the same view range as the 13105. The problem is its dispersion is pretty bad. Its aiming time seems pretty mediocre. So, I don't know. It looks fun. That's what I will say. This looks like an absolute blast, and I cannot wait to try it out. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, and as always, if you'd like to see more content like this on early access tanks, you know what to do. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.